Today, I want to talk with you about our nation's military involvement in Somalia.
In 1993, American troops were in Somalia as part of a UN humanitarian mission to distribute food, medicine, and relief supplies to the Somali people.
Fort Bragg, North Carolina, we got notified, hey, this is Somalia, and you're going to be part of a small task force that's going to go over there to remove a warlord from power. In Panama, guys are locking themselves in their handcuffs and turning themselves over to us. In Desert Storm, they're surrendering by the hundreds of thousands. But when we arrived in Somalia, the day that we arrived, we come under gunfight.
For decades, Somalia, more than any other country in the world, came to be regarded as the very model of a failed state.
Let's move on now to the Horn of Africa nation of Somalia. The lawmakers have handed over the presidency to former leader Hassan Sheikh Mohamud for a second time.
Somalia is located in East Africa, being the easternmost country of the continent, with an area of approximately 637,657 square kilometers, and has all the coasts of that continental section that is commonly known as the Horn of Africa because of the region's resemblance of having a rhinoceros body. In the south, it borders Kenya, to the east, the Indian Ocean, and to the west, Ethiopia, a country with which it has had a tense relationship over the years, often fighting for the region called Ogaden, among other conflicts. In the northwest of the country, Somalia borders Djibouti, a small country once known as French Somali. On the north side of the country, you have the Gulf of Aden, a body of water that separates Somalia from Yemen in the Arabian Peninsula on the other side of the sea, and that serves as an entrance to the Red Sea. This route made it an important location in the history of Africa, Asia, and Europe. In a sense, today's Somalia, known as the Federal Republic of Somalia, was born in 1960 when the two existing Somalias back then, one being under Italian rule and the other British rule, unified into an independent civilian government. But what happened before? And what would happen next? In ancient times, a certain part of the territory of present-day Somalia was part of the mythical kingdom of Aksum, or Aksumite, which ruled areas of present-day Ethiopia, Eritrea, Somalia, and Iran. Numerous tribes came from Iran and settled on the shores of the Gulf of Aden, mixing with the natives and bringing with them the Islamic religion, which spread throughout the area until it became the official religion. These Iranians settled in the area and found, among other areas, the city of Zela, an important port in the Gulf of Aden, as well as many sultanates from ancient to modern times. It is considered that during this state, the Islamic religion was strongly established, with the arrival of numerous Muslim families from Arabia, Persia, Spain, and India, families that became very important in the area. As such, the name of this country with the shape of an inverted letter L comes from the ethnic group to which the majority of the population belongs. The Somali ethnic group is divided into numerous clans and also populates many of the other countries of the Horn of Africa. For these people, ethnicity and clan of birth are much more important than what is understood in the West as gentility. The Somali ethnic group, of between 15 and 17 million people, accounts for 85% of the population and is also found in countries such as Kenya, Yemen, Djibouti, and Ethiopia, and is subdivided into numerous clans, some considered noble because of their nomadic customs, and other groups such as the Sab. It does not really matter if you are born in Kenya, Yemen, or Somalia. If your ancestors belong to this ethnic group, you are the same. These noble clans are 5: Darod, Dir, Hawiye, Isok, and Ranwe. The Darod, divided into 11 subclans, are the most numerous tribe in the Horn of Africa, and several influential figures of the nation and the world, such as Siad Barre, Somalia's most successful president, as well as the most controversial, and who we will talk about soon, belonged to it. The Dir clan is divided into 4 lineages, which in turn are divided into 12 other subclans. Hawiye is another of the largest and is the most dominant clan of the capital city, Mogadishu. Other ethnic groups, such as the Bantu, make up about 7% of the population, form the majority of the rest of the inhabitants in Somalia, and have more than 400 ethnic groups in Central Africa. To these are added the Benadir, the Bajumi, about 10,000 members on the south coast, the Omani and Yemeni Arabs, or the southern Baluchis, who number about 6,000. During the Middle Ages, from the 13th century onwards, millions of people of this ethnicity moved to the areas of the Horn of Africa and settled in present-day Somalia and in the Ogaden region. In the period that composes this era, until the year 1500 approximately, the Horn of Africa was populated by numerous kingdoms, like the Ethiopian kingdom, dominating to this day what is known as present-day Ethiopia, the Sultanate of Ado that dominated north of present-day Somalia, or the Sultanate of Mogadishu, whose name is presumed to come from the Arabic term Makhe de Shah, seat of the Shah, who dominated a large network of trade thanks to its position, controlling the traffic of gold and the minting of coins in the area, deserving for a long time the title of Baladi al-Barbar, land of the Berbers. In 1331, at the height of its prosperity, the Moroccan traveler Ibn Battuta described it as a vast city full of wealthy merchants who exported textiles to Egypt. This territory was followed by the Ajuran Sultanate, which completely controlled all the coasts of the Indian Ocean, being the most influential state in the Horn of Africa at the time, successfully resisting an Oromo invasion from the west and Portuguese incursions during the Halmadao and Ajuran Portuguese Wars. This state left in its domains the most sophisticated and advanced medieval structures in Africa: tombs, necropolis, fortresses, castles, everything. At the end of the 19th century, the so-called Africa distribution took place. 7 great countries met in Berlin: France, Spain, Portugal, United Kingdom, Germany, Italy, and Belgium, to deliberate which sections of the African continent, with all its resources, would belong to each one. Without having to resort to arms, these territories were established without taking into account the interest of the population, only those of the great powers, which in the long term would have negative consequences for Somalia. At this meeting, it was agreed that the northern part of Somalia, the one facing the Gulf of Aden, would be the property of the United Kingdom, while the southern part, with all the states already existing there, would be Italian. This European intervention would meet with resistance, such as the Dervish movement of Muhammad Abdullah Hassan, which fought for the foundation of a unified Somalia, which encompasses all the territories inhabited by the Somali ethnic group, i.e., present-day Somalia and parts of Kenya and Ethiopia. Although supported by the still existing Ottoman Empire, the lack of unity of the Somali people permeated the strength of the resistance, and the Europeans succeeded in settling in the areas. By the beginning of the 20th century, the Europeans were already entrenched, and the Dervish state in Ethiopia existed under the leadership of Hassan until his death in 1920. At this time, Fascist Italy not only eliminated the vassal Somali states of Geledi, Majorcan, and Hobyo, but also attacked again neighboring Ethiopia, conquering it. In 1940, Italy would attack and annex British Somalia, thus founding the so-called Italian East Africa, which existed until 1941, uniting all the territory inhabited by the Somali peoples. This new state would not include the Somalis of Ethiopia, Kenya, and Djibouti. At that time, there was the Somali Youth League, a major political party founded in 1949 with headquarters in British and Italian Somaliland, Ogaden, and northern Kenya, with the aim of uniting the entire ethnic group in a unified state. The first president of this nation, Aden Abdullah Osman Dar, belonged to this party, and his government issued the first Somali constitution in 1961. Stability thus lasted for a decade until 1969, when President Dar was assassinated during the coup d'etat of Mohammed Siad Barre, which turned the country into the Somali Democratic Republic. Although initiated in a conflictive manner, this new government promoted national development. The literacy rate increased, education and social conditions improved, the return to traditional Somali values was emphasized, and international political relations were strengthened, with the Republic joining the Arab League and the African Union. In 1976, Barre founded the Socialist Party of Somalia, which turned the country into an authoritarian dictatorship and caused the Ogaden War. And the confrontation began with Somalia's intention to take over the area. Both Ethiopia and Somalia were socialist nations and had good relations with the Soviet Union, which had collaborated a lot with the development of Somalia prior to the war. But when the Soviets supported the Ethiopians, Barre broke off relations with the Soviet Union and the socialist countries. This war would be his undoing. Not only would Barre and his allies lose the confrontation, but it would also initiate a crisis of ethnic Somali refugees who fled from Ogaden to northern Somalia, where the Isaaq clan lived. The country would not support such an accelerated population increase, leading to the Isaaq uprisings, so the dictator Barre ordered the slaughter of tens of thousands of people in the forgotten Isaaq genocide. This fact and the pressure of the regime started the Somali Revolution, which generated several anti-government groups, thus initiating the Somali Civil War in 1989. This inconclusive conflict has turned the country into a sort of failed state, divided into several states that are not internationally recognized, although with certain stability. In January 1991, a failed counter-revolution was launched with the aim of putting Siad Barre back in power. In May 1991, the Republic of Somaliland was born in the north of the country, a territory comprising a large part of what was British Somalia several decades ago, and founded to keep itself stable and away from the violent conflicts in the south. Although not internationally recognized, it has its own currency, government, and constitution. In 1991, UN troops led by a US-led group of nations delivered food and other humanitarian aid to alleviate famines and other national crises. There was some controversy about whether the US actions were humanitarian or merely a profit motive in the area. From 1998 until 2006, autonomous states appeared within Somalia that, while not proclaiming independence or seeking international recognition, sought to be autonomous in fact. Oh, by the way, autonomous means having the freedom to govern itself or control its own affairs. Puntland, located next to Somaliland, was born in 1998, declaring temporary independence in order to bring Somalia back to unity. It was followed by Jubaland to the south, alongside the Kenyan-Somali border. A year later, a third state led by the Ranwen Resistance Army was born, and in 2006, the autonomous state of Galmudug. In April 2000, at the Somalia National Peace Conference, the first transitional national government of Somalia was formed. In 2004, replacing the previous one, the Transitional Federal Government of Somalia was formed. 2 years later, this government allied itself with the warlords who controlled parts of the country in a very feudalistic manner. During these years, a chaotic and fierce scenario unfolded, in which Ethiopia, the Islamic Courts Union or ICU, the transitional government, the aforementioned warlords, and other factions clashed fiercely. The US joined the field for the first time in 2007. Various groups, such as the UTI and the Ethiopians, left behind a contingent of several thousand African Union troops, immediately followed by radical Islamist groups, such as Al-Shabaab, an off-brand version of Al-Qaeda, driving the Union and government troops from their positions and establishing Sharia or Islamic law. It is very important to note that Al-Shabaab ruled with an iron fist, and their version of Sharia law, killing and bombings of innocent people, was completely against the religion of Islam. In May 2007, these rebels attacked the capital and seized a large part of it, although without overthrowing the government, which maintained control of several sectors of the city. The government received international support from the United Nations, Canada, Germany, Australia, and other nations. Despite this, some of these anti-government groups control certain parts of the country. The crisis, social divisions, and scarcity of resources have earned this country the title of pirate country, since this type of boarding of merchant ships is common, although it has decreased. With the de facto but unrecognized governments of Puntland and Somaliland, a fragmented government, and the presence of extremists, for many, the Somali Civil War is still ongoing. In 2016, a group of politicians negotiated for elections, which have not happened in 20 years, to finalize a constitution, albeit with middling success, as the condition remains critical. It is not yet known what will become of this turbulent country. For some, it is a lost cause. For others, a hope full of potential. Time will eventually tell. But what do you think about it?